All right, good day to everybody. Rob Mazak here. I am a psychic medium, and some of you know that already. Well, those that follow me or have listened to some of my talks and videos. I obviously do a lot more talks and podcasts than I do videos because I'm not quite up to speed on the equipment for that side. And anyway, I want to do a little better job with that before I start doing a lot of videos. But I wanted to just take some time today and talk about a subject that has really kind of risen to the surface a little bit for at least in my life, and probably some of the other ones, some of the other folks that do what I do. And I just want to kind of discuss some things with that. And so, I call myself a psychic and a medium, combining them together, a psychic medium. Now, what exactly does that mean, right? And so everybody has their own definition of what a psychic and a medium is. And most people that do this work will tell you that every medium is a psychic, but not every psychic is a medium. And I would agree with that. I think that's an accurate statement. But a lot of people look at psychics in a way that probably isn't all that correct in some ways. For example, a lot of people, at least before I titled myself this, or I should say accepted the title as a psychic medium, I used to think very similar to what a lot of people out there probably do, is that, psychics get looked at in a lot of ways as if we know everything. You could walk in here, plop down in a chair, and I could tell you everything about you and everything that you need to know to move forward in your life, exactly how your life's going to pan out, almost like we're God. But I can tell you that's the farthest from the truth, that, of accurate abilities of a psychic. I mean, there are some, don't get me wrong, that are very, very good and can get some very accurate snippets of future events. And sometimes those will come to fruition. Now, I'll start with my definition of a psychic, what a psychic is. So for me, being psychic means that I can connect with you, the client, sitting in front of me, standing in front of me, on the video, on the phone, whatever, and kind of mix with your energy, resonate with your energy, if you will, and get a clear snapshot of what is going on in your life right now. What are some of the big ticket items that are being exuded and transmitted by your energy? And in that way, it's very helpful to kind of figure out where you're at, maybe why you're stuck, and why you don't necessarily feel like you can move forward. Other issues with your past. You get my point. It's almost like just kind of doing a life asset, if you will, of right now, a snapshot in time. And a lot of times when I do my readings, I like to use a multiple set of tools, just to kind of ensure that we're getting a complete picture of what is going on. I say that because I like to use cards, tarot cards, in my readings if I have the opportunity. If I'm out and about somewhere and I don't have them, that's fine. It still works just the same. However, tarot cards kind of give us just that extra advantage, the extra set of information that we can work through as a framework. And so it also gives people a visual representation of what kind of information is coming through for them. So in a lot of ways, it gives them a little more validation than me just here pulling stuff out of thin air, or so it appears, right? But, I don't know that being psychic is a gift that is just for the select or the few. All of us really have that ability. I can tell you, if you've ever had deja vu, that feeling that you've been here before, you have experienced whatever's happening in front of you before, that you've had those conversations word for word. So if you've had deja vu, you have in in effect, seeing the future. At some point in time in your past, you were presented into your memory somehow, into your energy, this exact event ahead of time. So, there you go. Everybody's psychic, right? And so these gifts are things that can be mentored and developed if you have the desire to do that, right? And it is amazing when I have students that come in, and I've only had a few, and but it's amazing when they sit in front of me and we do some testing, if you will. Let's see what you feel about with this picture or this holding this device or whatever. And the information that comes through is so accurate. And, most people don't believe that that's actually possible, when in fact it is very, very possible, very easy, very natural. So being psychic really, for me, is just getting a snapshot of who you are right now. Maybe what has brought you here. What is, what your parents are like, or whatever, right? Just things that come through. And for me, I don't necessarily dwell on a lot of future things, because I have a lot of people that want to know, well, what should I be doing? What is my future? What am I supposed to look forward to? What is going to happen? I'm like, well, I can give you a snapshot in time right now, what that might look like if nothing changes in your life. But we all know that there are lots of changes. There are things that are going to come up that are going to take us off our current path. There's a lot of other players in your life that are part of the equation. So seeing something into the future or in the future, it can be very helpful to kind of give people a general idea of what is coming through for what they probably are going to see. But I like to caveat that with everybody and anybody that this is a snapshot in time. Don't necessarily, bet the farm on what's coming up, because things can change. And the other thing, I actually learned this from a client. The other thing that is important is if you see something in somebody's future, for example, that perhaps they're going to, you're going to get divorced, or I see that in the cards or whatever, that, there's possibility of divorce coming down. And, you state that as a fact. The funny thing is, a belief system is very, very strong. If that person sitting in front of you has a total belief in what you're saying, you just formed a belief in their system of belief. And, even if a divorce wasn't actually something that was supposed to come to fruition, it probably will now, because you have developed in them a belief that is what is coming, and it'll become part of their subconscious programming, and there you go. It will actually happen in a lot of cases. So you have to be careful, I think, how you word that, how you present the information. You almost have to do like the little lawyer thing, Let's put a little additional verbiage at the end, to state that, what I'm seeing now is a snapshot, only a snapshot. And if you don't work on your marriage, for example, in this case that we're talking about, then divorce could happen. And so I really feel like you're headed that way now if you don't make some changes. And anyway, you get my point. You have to kind of politicize how you put that out, right? Anyway, I'll digress for a second. And so what then is it like to be a medium? Most people would equate that to talking to the dead, right? And do I connect with the energy of those that have passed? It certainly appears that way. And because the information that comes through is exactly relevant to the person that's sitting in front of me. But do I actually talk to those that have passed on? I don't know. In some cases, when you're not in front of a client and something comes through, it would be hard to argue that I'm blending with somebody's energy and just telling them something they already know, somewhere in their subconscious. But I do feel like that does happen when you're working with a client in a lot of ways. And so a lot of what are, at least my connection, I'll speak about myself, to the other side, if you will, anything outside of this reality that is not necessarily accessible normally through our five senses, I think it comes through actually connecting with the person's energy, blending with mine, and I'm able to just reach in and read the book. And in many cases, those memories, those residual memories of the loved ones that they've had in their life are still part of them. And so it's like, it's in some cases, I feel like we're simply reaching in, flipping through some pages and going, oh my gosh, yeah. And then when they hear the information, to them, and to me sometimes, it feels like I'm actually conversing with those that are passed on. So, but I can't prove that. I can't show you a video and claim that that's what's happening. But certainly there is information stored somewhere in the ether, or to pun or coin a term, the medium that's out there that is part of everything that there is. And maybe myself and others are just attuned to knowing how to access the information. Just like the internet. The internet is this wide expanse of almost unlimited amount of information. But, you know, when you learn to search the internet very specifically, you'll get very specific information. You know, if you put in general information, you're going to get general information back. In the same way, I think we are accessing the records of everything that's ever been and ever will be, if you will. And some might equate that to Akashic records, but we'll digress on that for a second. And so what really got me to thinking about this is working with a new mentee or student, or anyway, I'm working with somebody that's interested in figuring out what their gifts are and how they can use them and where they can move on with. And so my job with students per se is not to necessarily teach them how to connect. It's like, how are you connecting? And let's validate that information. Figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are, and you can then either improve on ones that you'd like or accentuate the ones that you have positive attributes in. And so anyway, this gal, came in, and we were doing a bunch of reading pictures and various things, and I was trying to understand her to begin with. And, how is it that you receive your information? What does that feel like? And she says, it feels like there's just this thickness. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense. I mean, it's like, that is in a lot of ways what the medium is per se. So am I or others actually a medium, or somebody that's just talented enough to access this medium, this thickness, this endless amount of information that's out there, that's available, if you know how to connect with it, research it, feel it out, bring it into your five senses, and then try to make sense of it. I don't know. But I wanted to kind of touch on that a little bit because, I think that, like I said, we all have these abilities. But I do believe some people come in to this life, or life in this reality, already equipped from day one, and don't always realize what's happening. And sometimes they feel very strange, don't trust it, all that. But as I was meditating on this particular topic before I got behind this mic, I was brought back to much of my early life, and I started to realize, oh my gosh, I've been able to do this my whole life, at least, very early on in life, that the memories I have of it. And, a lot of it got squashed though. because a lot of these experiences started happening when I was part of a religious commune, which we won't name or really talk too much about. But, it was, when I had experiences where I know I encountered other entities or energies, I, was so indoctrinated into this model of religion that, I felt like it was demonic or some kind of evil entity. And of course, all the adults in my life certainly solidified that belief and really, it dug into me for a long time that, I'm under attack. And, that happened quite often, and obviously I grew out of that. But, our belief systems can really put labels on what we're experiencing. And the other early memories that really came streaming back to me is I, in the early 80s when I was in the Marine Corps, I remember before the advent of computers. Now the magic happens under my fingers on a keyboard for downloads, if you will. But back then, computers were not a big thing. And so, pen and paper in hand, I would just start writing, just randomly start writing. And before I knew it, there's 2 or 3 pages of writing. And, when I would read back at it, I'm like, where did this message come from? This didn't seem to happen in my consciousness. And I remember that I felt like most of these messages were from my father for some reason. I kept giving them to him. And finally, after a while, he says, I appreciate the messages, but, I believe these messages are actually for you. And I kind of shrugged it off. But, I tell you right now, I really wish I had my hands on those writings from earlier times. And, perhaps some of them are coming up now in some of my meditation journeys and all that stuff. And then, the writings that I do now. But, and then in one other example is that it felt like I was able to access a part of my mind early on, as long as I can remember, where it's almost like activated this pressure in the center of my forehead, in the center of my brain. And, and I know what you guys are thinking already. We're going to get to it. But, I didn't know what that was, and I felt like I could lay down or sit down and activate this thing. And I could do some interesting things. And so I decided to experiment one day. And, young Marine in a college town full of mostly girls. We went out there one night and we walked in, single guy I was, right? And I said, I'm going to put this to a test. I feel like I can transmit my thoughts. And so let's try it, right? And so I remember, sitting down across, in this crowded bar, and I saw this really good-looking girl at the bar and sitting at the bar. And she was with some guys, but I remember, doing whatever my thing was and transmitting thoughts across, those, what do you call it? Whispers of things that we would love to say to every woman, but we don't have the courage to, to do it straight to their face. But, the sweet nothings. And that's what I was sending across to this girl, and I was, for a while I was wondering if it was working, but it actually, it seemed like an eternity, but just within a couple minutes, this girl turned and looked at me through all those people. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And then, but then she would not stop looking at me. She would not pull her eyes off of me. No matter, I started to get really uncomfortable. I'm like, what did I just do? What did I just do, right? And so she followed me around. Her gaze followed me around the entire time. And, of course, I'm a wimp when it comes to talking to the ladies, especially when you're single and you're trying to get some kind of relationship going. And so I had to go outside. And, that scared me. I didn't realize that this kind of thing could happen. And so I put a lot of things on the shelf for a while. And but if I look back through my history, there's a lot of things that have happened to me, messages that have come through, and dreams that have come through, and the search to figure out what the message was, I think in a lot of ways was to simply train me to do it now. And anyway, I just wanted to, take a few minutes to talk about that. And not so much to talk about me, but the fact that, these kind of gifts, this kind of information is there. It is everywhere. And, with the advent of quantum mechanics and quantum physics and really diving into, extra dimensions and all these things that they're showing and proving that are actually there, and I think the biggest thing that really comes to light with all the quantum research is that what's really there is every single possibility exists in every cell of our body, every molecule of our body, and every molecule and everything that's ever exists is simply every possibility captured into me, for example, or you, or a rock, or a blade of grass. But the thing is that this research is showing that we simply are about 99% or better of empty space. Only endless amounts of possibilities, all waiting for a conscious decision, a conscious attention. And, I think that really brings to light the fact that how do you access any information you want? You learn to tune in, gaze, or put your attention on the right information, and you can have any information that you want to have. And I think they prove this with a lot of these official, like, remote viewing programs and on and on and on. But it's all there, people. It's everywhere. And it is a really wonderful thing to know that you can access what you need to, and deciding that you really want to do this is to do this as a calling, it really takes a leap of faith. And so if you guys are out there and you're discovering that you're feeling things and knowing things and you don't know how you know them, that's okay. Having the knowing is the real secret. And everybody has their own way of receiving, just like any receiver of electronic signals. They all have their specialties in how they download that information. I know people that can't visualize, yet they can still get the information. Like a marquee goes across their mind. I know people that can get information through just a couple of their senses, and somehow their brain or their mind can formulate that and make sense of it. And so it doesn't matter what it looks like, and it's okay if you don't know how you know, but knowing something is really natural. It is absolutely natural. I believe every one of us is we're a microcosm of the macrocosm. We are all one. We are all connected like a global cosmic consciousness. And in that way, we can really learn to help ourselves. We can learn to help others. And of course, all of that with some type of discretion, right? And so just because you know something about somebody doesn't mean you need to go blurt it out to them. Make sure they're ready to receive anything that you might know or feel like right? And just be careful with that. But I would encourage everybody, even if you don't want to do it as a profession like I do, and, to really figure out what you have. And even if you're going to use it simply to become better at the skill that you practice as employment, you become a better teacher. You can learn to to pick up knowledge from other places besides books and the internet. And, you can draw information from anywhere, anytime, and it's all there available for you. And, don't doubt yourself, right? And so you can use this skill set to enrich your life, to become a much better version of yourself, and help this earth and this reality, whatever this is, to become a much more robust and highly energetic system. Because we're damaging it, we're killing it, we're flooding it with all these ultra low frequencies, Wi-Fi and cell and you name it. So we need more people. We need more people out there to be the light. We need more people out there to connect. We need more people to draw in the information so that we can, quote unquote, save this planet, save this place we call home. Because we are not upholding our end of the bargain. Mother Earth needs us to be part of the system, not to be the virus of the system, if you will, right? Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. As you can tell, I didn't script it, and I don't normally script things. It seems to be more difficult and laborious to do it that way, but just to talk from my heart. And anyway, I will digress, and I just wanted to say that I send peace and energy to everybody, right? Stay strong, live your life. Namaste, and I will talk to you soon.